Call in 619-431-3186 live on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris. I begin today with my thoughts for you. It is Friday, March the 2nd, 2018, right here in the beautiful state of California, and particularly running out of the beautiful city of San Diego. It is good to be with you. It is good to be live. Let me say this as I begin in my opening thoughts today. There's this conversation going on about what do we do on gun reform. I'm going to begin by saying that there's got to be a real conversation about this, and we must be the ones to deal with it. So let me share in my thoughts for you today that it is imperative that you think very closely at a very strong depth about what it is that you are pushing for and what it is that you are headed towards. Because if we don't get gun reform in America, we have to think about the kids. The kids are the ones who get hurt in the process. The kids are the ones suffering in the process, and we've got to remember that they are the ones we're speaking about. Don't forget who you're speaking for. I'll go to my first call in at this time. I'm taking a call from my good brother and good friend from the city of Riverside, my brother Jess Markham. Good morning.
Good morning, Brother Shane. How you doing, man?
Doing good, doing good. We're going to where you're at in Riverside. Give us a context of what it is you're calling in concerning today.
Basically, man, I want to, first of all, I have the owner of the company that I work for, man. I want to introduce my owner. Her name is Edith from Sobertech and Sanctuaries. She would like to talk about what we're doing in the community. Edith, are you there?
Yes.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
How's everybody doing this morning?
Going well. Apologize, we have a lot of call-ins this morning, but I wanted to be sure to get to you all, and particularly my brother Jess. What's going on?
We wanted to just share information for the community, for families that are needing resources of where they can send their family members or friends for treatment and recovery, for healing, if they're struggling with some type of substance abuse, any type of drug addiction, alcohol addiction, even trauma, PTSD, ADHD, family conflicts, stress, anxiety, sexual abuse. We basically have a program in Laguna Hills in Orange County, and our facility is called Sober Spot Recovery. And we also have another house called Sanctuary of Transformation. We have a holistic-based program. We're trying to change, of course, the industry and trying to bring new modalities that are very effective to get to the root of the cause. So we're able to detoxify people there, cleanse them from all of the toxins and the metals, from all the drug abuse or alcohol abuse they've done. We flush out their system, their blood, their organs, their colon system, their intestines with natural herbs too, so that they can flush out all of that. That eliminates the cravings too. So we do it, of course, medically, and we do it holistically. So by the time they come out of there, they come out focused, full of vitality, energy, more in tune with themselves, and they're able to finally have their life back. We also have our patient program where we offer a lot of the therapies. They get to see a psychotherapist, counselors, case managers. So we have a group of individuals that are professional. We have interventionists, we have MDs, doctors, nurses on staff. So we have the whole package. And just to kind of give you results of what we've done, we've been doing this for about 5 years now, and we have probably about 95% of the people that come out of treatment, they come out with a job, they come out registered back in school. So we're able to help them get their life back, and we're able to help them, with everything that they need, all right. The tools, all the resources.
All right, give us one second. We're going on a quick break. When we get back, we're going to continue with this call-in, and we got more coming. Stay on with Get On Up.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at ktav.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.
Hey everybody, this is Rev Shane Harris. Every Friday I hold a live radio show at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.ktav.tv. The show is called Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris, and we discuss all of the country's issues, from Washington, D.C. to your local community, social dialogue, political impact, and strategy talk. For all of our communities to realize that we don't have to get down, we got to get up and know what we're doing. So it's strategy time every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris on KTAV.tv.
All right. We are back here live on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris. Tell somebody, call in 619-431-3186. We'll continue with our call-in with Jess Markham, and then we're going to our next call-in from Sacramento. Jess, finish us off.
Hi, guys. Hey, so I wanted to just give you guys the information in case you guys need any help. If you have a family member in need, we have all of the resources, whether you have insurance, you don't have insurance, Medicare, we are able to guide you and help you go to the facility where, you're able to get treatment. The phone number is 949-388-5123. Again, it's 949-388-5123. We're here to help 24 hours a day, and we're here to serve our community and offer them any services that they need.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Brother Jess. All right, we're going to our next call-in from Sacramento, San Diego, halfway each way. Sony Piesker, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Lasagna Piesker. You can call me Sony. I wanted to just share.
This is my auntie, y'all.
No problem. Yeah, I'll get you. I just wanted to bring some clarity to a conversation that I'm hearing a lot in the community, and there's just a little bit of confusion, and that is regarding the effects of Proposition 209 and the then and the now. People use the word preference a lot now. Well, there are no more preferences. That was under Proposition 209. What we do have in contracting, public contracting now, is called goals, and I want to kind of clarify the difference. With the program under Proposition 209, it was mandated that with each contract that was let, that you had to prefer a certain race or whatever. They had a shortage on whether there wasn't parity, whether it was African American or if it was a woman or whatever, and you had to hire that particular clientele. Whereas under goals, what the goals represent is that for federal contracts, if there's $1 of money in a contract, that makes it a federal contract. Once it becomes a federal contract, goals kick in. Now, the goals on the contract are based on the results of a disparity study. All public agencies have their own disparity studies done. And those studies are purposely to find out where there is parity within the classifications, whether it's construction, engineering, and so on and so forth. So once they determine what that is, they come up with a number to bring parity up. So they say, in order to make it equal between the sexes or the races or whatever, we need to put a 15%, for example, goal on this contract. However, when you put that goal on the contract, even though the goal is on there and even though it's mandated, you still must qualify for the contract. And so they don't have to give it to you, but you have to do what's called a good faith effort. And what that means is that the prime contractors, who are the larger contractors who get the larger contracts, have to make a good faith effort to bring on subs as part of that contract. And what they have to do is, when I say good faith effort, they have to actually work with the subs to work through any impediments to contracting. So, for example, if the sub called the prime and said, hey, I see you're looking for a fencer, I do fencing, and then he says, okay, that's great, but I need you to be bonded for $5 million because this is a large job. And then the gentleman says, well, I can't get bonded for that amount because I'm so small. Well, at that point, the prime contractor is supposed to work with that business, do everything within their power, even if it means calling their own bonding agencies to try to get that person bonded. So they have to make an effort. Once they've exhausted all avenues and the effort didn't happen, then they just document it, and then the Federal Highway Administration will write it off as, okay, at least he tried. So now to bring more clarity to it, there is, for the state of California, for example, on all state contracts, if it's state funded, you have to spend 25% of the contracting or procurement dollars. So that means if it's contracting or procurement, either one, you have to spend 25% for small business. If it is state contract for disabled veterans for the state of California, you have to spend 3% of that contract with small business. Although Caltrans is the only department that upped the percentage to 5%, so that's something they did some years back. But most of the agencies, the other agencies, is 3%. As far as the federal dollar, again, that changes every 3 to 5 years when a new disparity study comes out. So when I retired 2 years ago, it was 13.75%. I'm not sure what it is now. Now, with other agencies, however, they don't necessarily use those three categories. They may use, for example, some agencies use the Small Business Enterprise, which is a certification through the city. So they may use that certification. Or the airport, they have a certain certification for concession stands, and that's a whole different certification. So there's all these different types. Now, what I did do when I was at Caltrans, and I still have it handy, is I prepared a chart with the various public agencies and what certifications they use and what amounts of goals that they put on there, so that if a business wanted to go out, they would know, how. Because basically what it does is it just increases your competitive edge. Because if you come to the table and you're certified as a small business, and there's another business and you're going after the same contract and you're equally qualified, that department or that organization is going to go with the certified because that person is going to help them meet their goals. Right. So you're always going to be the one that stands out. But we just want to get away from using the word preference because people use goals and preference interchangeably, and it's different. Because under the preference program, you had to. There was no good faith effort, whereas now there is. So, but you do have to exhaust all avenues to try to help that business.
Wow, you got my producer in here jumping hoops. He's saying, "Man, I need to get in contact with her." So
I would love to meet him.
So go into context real quick before you go on Prop 209 for listeners who don't know what that is. Why is Prop 209 so big and important?
Well, Proposition 209, it was a really big thing, and actually I was right in the center of it because there was a debate with Regent Ward Connolly and Congresswoman Diane Watson at the state capitol when we had it on the ballot. And I actually am the one that hosted the reception at the state capitol, and it was a really dynamic debate. What happened was, with that particular piece of legislation, it was written, it was just amazing how they did it. They wrote it to where if you didn't know and you weren't educated on the topic, it sounded like it was to help to increase the preferences and keep the preferences going, when it was actually the opposite. So I personally went on a campaign and did voters registration booths all over Sacramento, which is where I lived at the time, and got over 500 people registered. What I called it voter registration and education booth, because I never tell anyone how to vote, but I want to make sure you're educated on what you're really voting on. So I would tell them what it really meant. Now, what happened was, back then, we had it where African Americans, for example, couldn't get into good colleges. But because of the Proposition 209, that brought in what's called the Affirmative Action Program. The Affirmative Action Program said, hey, every year, you have to at least enroll 40% of your students have to be African American. I'm just using that number arbitrarily, but so that's what that did. So it made them do it, and they had to. And it wasn't a matter of, well, this student's grade average or point average. It doesn't matter. You have to allow there to be at least this percentage of African Americans. And again, it's because there was disparity. Because Proposition 209 would have never been needed had the various races and genders received their equity in the first place. That's why it was brought into place. But then when it was voted out, for a while there, we had nothing. But then some bright person came up with the gold system. So again, with the gold system, now it's like, okay, it kind of gives us a little leverage again. And the thing that I always tell business owners is, I'm huge on it, I always say it, is that you always want to consider joint ventures. And what that means is that if you are going after a contract and if there's anything you don't have that another business has, join up with them. And I always use this particular example. There was a young man I was trying to help, and you had to have you had to have a contractor's license B, which was electrical. And he had the license, and the other gentleman wanted to work on it, but he didn't have the license, but he had the general contractor's license just for general. So they went in together. And so him having the B classification and him having just the general qualified the both of them to do the project. So sometimes it's really huge to open your mind up, and especially when you're new at public contracting, and know that if there's something that or even with the bonding, if you can't get bonded, okay, go find a business that can get bonded, and then do a joint venture. Because what you want to do with public agencies is really huge, is you want to get your name out there and get them to know you. Because once they know you, they work for you. So with me, I have a very personal relationship with all my businesses at Caltrans. So I picked up the phone and told them about work they didn't even know about, because I told them, spend time with me, and then it keeps you, on your mind type of thing. So I call them and say, hey, I got a contract coming up for so-and-so and so. Do you think you can be ready? You can have a proposal ready by such a date? Or I have an emergency job. With emergency jobs, with any agency, it doesn't matter. You don't have to get a bid. You just pick up the phone and call the person. Look, I got some flooding over here on I-5. I need you out here in 30 minutes. Get out there. Boom, you got a job. So there's so many ways. There's so many variations, but I think that the general public is not as educated about just how much access they do have and different ways that they can get around it. And one of the things I did also at Caltrans is I went personally and built relationships with 5 African-American lenders and 5 bonding African-American banks, and so on and so forth. So when a business came to me and said, I can't get a loan, I give them the card of the person that I already told. When this person comes in and says, LaSanya sent them, give them a loan. So you're giving business to the lender and you're giving business to the contractor. Wow. So there's a setup. And so I had set up this whole system that they had me go on the road statewide and teach all the districts. Caltrans has 12 districts because they said that my way was producing the best results. And that's what I did, is that I didn't just tell you about the program. I worked with you from the beginning to the end until you got in. And once you get in and you do one contract with any public agency, it's about performance. If you perform well, you don't have anything to worry about. They're going to call you next time. We have people that we use, for example, say on the purchasing side, where we buy a lot of supplies. Every department does. Well, there's a gentleman that he's a small business and he sells products through actually Granger, which is a large business, but he's a subcontractor of Granger. We give him most of the business because we know, hey, he's always on time. When we have an emergency, if the printers break down, he has our toner in within the hour, da-da-da-da-da. So, you get used to these people, and then you give them work. And then what I would do is, just to make sure we share the wealth, I would give one person work for a while, and then I'd move over and tell them, okay, I'll get back to you next quarter. Let me spread the wealth and get us one. So the people inside, they work hard for the businesses. In fact, we have what's called a public agency consortium, which is still going on, and I was the vice chair of it. And it's actually the city, the county, the airport authority, it's the water authority, it's the school district, it's the housing commission, it's the Navy. All these organizations, we come together, and they still do, every other month, specifically to strategize on ways to help small businesses get work with them. And once these people, the key people, who I have a list of all of them, all of these key people, they work hard for their businesses. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. And then you have the small business development centers, and you have Turner Construction, School of Construction Management, that offer free classes. So there's no reason why you can't go and get you some knowledge and some expertise and go ahead and try to get the work. So I really just want people to know that there is still great programs out there to help you, even though we do not have Proposition 209, but we have goals, and that's just as good. It's just a matter of knowing how to work the system.
Right. Well, we really appreciate your, and we're going to have you come and do something at National Action Network very soon on this. And we're going to spend a Saturday Action Rally around this, because it is very important people understand this is an equity. And this is what Dr. King died fighting for, equity. If we don't have access, then all of the other things that we're fighting for are even more permanent. We must call on and take action in dealing with equity. And I can say that NAN is really beginning to take force in this area and realm. And so we need to have you come and really deal with this piece on contracting, because, like I said, my producer, Bill Brown, is sitting here jumping in his seat. He can't wait to talk to you. And
thank you.
And we've
got my voice.
We've got to deal with this. So we really appreciate it, your wisdom, and we're going on a quick break. When we get back, we're going to continue. We're taking our politics panel with Amos Jones from Washington, D.C. You don't want to miss it. Lots to discuss. Gun reform, everywhere from that to the real issue around where are we going with this Russia piece. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back here on Get On Up.
Hey, everybody. This is Rev Shane Harris. Every Friday, I hold a live radio show at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.ktav.tv. The show is called Get On Up with Rev Shane Harris, and we discuss all of the country's issues, from Washington, D.C. to your local community, social dialogue, political impact, and strategy talk. For all of our communities to realize that we don't have to get down. We got to get up and know what we're doing. So it's strategy time every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Get On Up with Rev Shane Harris on KTAV.tv.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at KTAV.TV or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at KTAV.TV/ministry.
Hey everybody, this is Rev Shane Harris. Every Friday I hold a live radio show at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.ktav.tv. The show is called Get On Up with Rev Shane Harris, and we discuss all of the country's issues. From Washington, D.C. to your local community, social dialogue, political impact, and strategy talk. For all of our communities to realize that we don't have to get down. We got to get up and know what we're doing. So it's strategy time. Every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Get On Up with Rev Shane Harris on KTAV.TV.
You are listening to the San Diego Station of Inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at KTAV.TV or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at KTAV.TV/ministry.
Hey everybody, this is Rev Shane Harris. Every Friday I hold a live radio show at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.ktav.tv. The show is called Get On Up with Rev Shane Harris, and we discuss all of the country's issues. From Washington, D.C. to your local community, social dialogue, political impact, and strategy talk. For all of our communities to realize that we don't have to get down. We got to get up and know what we're doing. So it's strategy time. Every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Get On Up with Rev Shane Harris on KTAV.TV.
All right. We are back here live on Get On Up with Rev Shane Harris. Tell somebody we're live. I am now talking, of course, with our weekly whiz. That's what I'm going to start calling him. I'm going to start calling him the weekly whiz. Because Amos Jones is nothing short of smart and nothing short of wise. Y'all, let's welcome our weekly analyst and our politics panel leader, attorney and professor, calling in from D.C. today. You know, he's all over the country. He likes to fly around. I don't get to fly like him. Amos Jones, everybody. Good morning, Amos.
Good morning, Reverend Harris. It's so flattering. I am honored to be back on your program. You are one of the fearless stalwarts of justice. You understand the Kingian ethic of having equity for the people. And I'm so glad to be back today to talk with you about equity, but also to talk about the situation that right here in D.C., and I am in downtown Washington, D.C., 4 blocks from the White House, 10 blocks from the Capitol, where we can break it down.
Well, there's a lot to break down, considering the fact that the President of the United States, number 45, gets up this week and says that teachers should have guns in their classrooms. Amos, there's a big issue in regards to this context of gun reform when you look at the real issues around how to reform this gun problem, which is what we believe it is. You can't say, well, if somebody's mentally unstable, yeah, that's a piece to it, but you cannot depend everything on that. There is an issue when you have military weapons, Amos, going in the hands of people who are regular people who are able to use those weapons to their advantage. So there's a real issue with that. And I want to open up our politics conversation, Amos, because here's the reality. People are losing their lives. Young kids are losing their lives. And while we're arguing political rhetoric, people are getting their hands on AR-15s and military-style weapons. What are your thoughts about, first of all, what the President of the United States said, noting that teachers should have guns in their classrooms? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a recycled policy proposal. Governor Ventura, after Columbine, Jesse Ventura, the independent of Minnesota and formerly a Navy SEAL and professional wrestler, had suggested perhaps after Columbine that if some teachers or somebody else had been armed, maybe they could have stopped the carnage. We already have officers, even in my safe suburban high school in Lexington, Kentucky, which had about 1,600, 1,800 students and fewer than 15 fights per year, I guess, roughly. We had 3 officers there who were known to be officers, plainclothes guard type people, and they were armed, and that helped to keep order. So I don't think it would work out to have these. I used to think that might be a good idea to have more official people who are armed, like air marshals on airplanes. But the more I've heard the analysis this week, it seems like that idea has already been looked at, and very few people think it would actually work. Even people on the pro-gun side seem to be skeptical of that. That's why it hasn't been implemented. Although there have been towns where there are 1 or 2 towns, one of them in Georgia, I think one of them in Kansas, where by city ordinance, everybody had to be armed, and the gun violence went down dramatically, and so did crime in those towns where they did that. But that's different. So, but I want to push the equity thing. Reverend Harris.
But before we get there, because that's important, and we all need to be on the equity angle in dealing dealing with this. But we got to think about, before we get there, I think it's very important, Amos, that we think very clearly about this issue because it's affecting our kids.
Oh, yes.
When you talk about gun reform, last night there was a bunch of church, I believe church leaders in some denomination that stood up holding the AR-15 guns and blessing them. Now here's the reality with this issue, right? I'm not surprised, right, that conservatives are arguing, the concept of guns. I'm not surprised that people are dealing with this context. But what I am surprised about, Amos, is these Christians, not all Christians, some of these Christians that are standing up talking about we're protecting our gun rights. We're protecting, I believe, the Second Amendment. How does it make sense for you to get up and talk about holding a gun in the church? You're holding an AR-15 in the church, and you're getting up and protecting this kind of concept, saying, oh, we're protecting Second Amendment rights. The Lord wants us to have our right. The Lord ain't in that. So the reality is, you mean to tell me that you are a church pastor, but you come in holding the AR-15 with guns in the church, talking about the Lord is protecting our rights? How does that make any sense in context that at the end of the day, kids are the ones getting shot?
Yeah, it might have made a little more sense if it were not an AR-15. For example, we know that carnage at the Church of Christ in Nashville, when the usher got pistol whipped and beat down, the gunman, who I think was from he was an immigrant person who was upset with some things in America, and he decided to go in and disrupt Sunday service and start shooting people. And fortunately, that man who got pistol whipped went to his car and got his gun, and they pinned the man, and he got charged, and all that carnage was stopped. So I think that's how you get to this notion of we need to arm ourselves, all we're Christian soldiers marching as to war with the cross of Jesus. So, I mean, it seems far-fetched, but it's what I told you last week on your air. And that is that what we really have is guns and absolute Second Amendment freedom and First Amendment freedom as a proxy for the loss of a culture. And that those tensions are somewhat founded, though these articulations of them I find to be inappropriate and not persuasive. So that's what we have to be mindful of. These people who are blessing, if you interact with these ministers, which is not hard to do, the types of ministers who do those kinds of things, they're not a lot different from the ministers who promote abortion from the pulpit, for example, on the other side. Some people say, how could a Christian person be for any right to an abortion? And obviously that can be explained.
But here's the problem that I have, Amos. The problem that I have is you can't come in saying we're against them promoting abortion, all these things. At the end of the day, abortion and some of these other issues with LGBT, so on and so forth, these are all choice issues. These kids don't have a choice whether they got shot or not yesterday or did they last week.
Yes, that's true. But you know the theology of
this.
This
is the context of what we're dealing with.
That is true. This comes in at an awful time. It's awfully ill-advised.
We are dealing with non-choice deaths. These kids don't deserve to be shot and killed. And yet we're sitting up arguing Second Amendment rights when we should be saying the Lord is not for people going in schools and churches shooting people up.
Now they say that too. They say that too.
But you can't bring in AR-15s in the church talking about you going to bless them. I mean, it doesn't raise the context.
Yeah, I mean, it's very political, clearly. I mean, to go in to bring if they had been bringing those in before this, it might be different, but they weren't. And so it is, again, it's one of those pushbacks that you see. It's a form of pushback, and I think it's unbecoming at a time like this. And I think everybody, 99% of people would agree with that, including people on the right. Those are extreme examples of people who I think are misguided and who are very defiantly believing that they're defending right. And, that's the way it is with people and their beliefs. You're going to find these fringe groups. Now, let me be very quick here. I want to point out that what we have done, though, you're completely correct on the agenda setting.
Right.
We have failed to focus in our schools on safety and guns and gun laws with kids involved.
But we've also failed in our schools to deal with gun violence in our churches. So this is a context of, from several angles, this is a context that we're talking about. You've got to deal with what we're talking about in our churches. We're blessing AR-15s in churches. Pastors are blessing AR-15s, but won't even have a conversation around gun violence. There's got to be a real conversation.
Is there a single church in San Diego where there's an AR-15 service of blessing? I mean, this is really a friend.
One second.
Call from. Okay. I said goodbye.
All right. Go ahead, Amy.
We don't need to overstate the prevalence of these blessings,
right?
Of these things. It really is a fringe group. So, let's be honest about this. What I was going to say is, with regard to equity in this issue, what we are doing instead in our schools is like what's happening out here, where we have an African-American guidance counselor being targeted in a public high school in Columbia, Maryland, in Howard County, Maryland, who they're trying to relocate her for being too pro-minority students and helping them get into colleges. So these schools, in part, cannot do what they're supposed to do and get the staff and resources in public policy because many of them, and I know this because I go against them in court, and in the EEOC and human rights commissions, they're too busy trying to beat down African American educators. And they're spending so much time abusing African Americans in the schoolhouse, and I can prove it. We can do a whole show on this, and we can name names and name the people who, and while they do that, the schools are getting shot up and plots are being done and the warning signs are being ignored because we're spending all of our time beating down African American women educators, and I can name names from coast to coast, Reverend Harris, and that's what makes the chickens come home to roost. The eye is not on the ball, and we will pay for that evil.
Right. You know, there's a context that they're saying some of commentary talking about Second Amendment wasn't addressing. I might have got the amendments wrong, but here's the context.
You were correct. I didn't hear anything incorrect.
I believe it's Second Amendment.
It's second. Guns are second. Speech is first. You're completely correct.
Yeah. So you can't come in raising the context of this. And so as we continue, this is why tomorrow at the National Action Network, House of Justice, I want all of you out. If you are in near San Diego, you can always find me live. You say, I can't get a hold of Reverend Harris. I want to go speak with Reverend Harris. Come on to the House of Justice at 1728 South 39th Street, San Diego, California, 10 a.m. every Saturday. I'm there. And tomorrow I will be keynoting on this issue. I want you there. The kids are coming out. We're going to pack the house. We want all the kids there because we must stand up and give these young people a voice and say that if we are not talking about them, then we ain't talking about nothing. From equity to gun violence to all these issues, our kids are the ones, their lives are at stake, and we've got to be the ones to raise their voice. And that's why on March 14th, I'm leading a walkout at UCSD with several students.
Walk it out.
Because we have to make sure young people's voices are not just at the table, but that they have access at the table, that they are tapping in at the table, and that is what gun violence must be a conversation about. So if you are in or near San Diego, join me at the House of Justice headquarters, 1728 South 39th Street. I'm up at 10:30 a.m. keynoting. We're live on the web, live on radio. We want you there. Come on out, 1728 South 39th Street, 10 a.m., right in the village of Southeast San Diego. I want you there at the House of Justice, where I will be speaking live tomorrow if you're near San Diego. So, Amos, as we continue this dialogue, and we got to go here shortly, what is the context from gun violence, obviously, to Russia? We just have seen here in San Diego a new congressional candidate, the former mayor of El Cajon, the mayor of El Cajon City, where Alfred Alongo was killed, and that mayor who did nothing about Alfred Alongo is running for Congress against Duncan Hunter. So we just found that out, and we also in dealing with a major congressional race in District 49. Both District 50 and District 49 are at battle when it comes to these congressional seats. That's Darrell Issa seat and Duncan Hunter's seat. And there's heated races going on in both venues. We're talking about midterm elections. Amos, what are your biggest concerns as we head into midterm elections? Are we prepared to turn the tide, or are Democrats still in shambles?
Well, President Trump's approval rating will correlate to how the turnout is and who wins ultimately. But what also will contribute to who wins, which side wins, Democrats or Republicans netting, we do have Republican solid districts going leaning Democratic in some cases across the country, including state representative districts down to that level. So that gives the Democrats some hope. But I will always warn the Democratic Party, and I'm now a registered independent, so you really get it straight down the middle sometimes with me. If the culture wars come out, that's bad for the Democrats. It really is. Now, the gun culture war may be turning more toward moderation and liberality. That's good for the Democrats. But if it's some other type of issues, religious freedom versus LGBT, which is a hot button thing, that's going to go and tip in the side of the Republicans. It always does. Right. So the Democrats better watch it. It's not just Donald Trump. Donald Trump won and had all kinds of problems. I mean, we all know that Stormy Daniels is not a surprise. Was anybody surprised when Stormy Daniels resurfaced? No.
And
he still won that. He still got those votes.
No.
That's Stormy Daniels. Here she come again.
And now, and now we got the Russian girl that's saying she's going to break news on Trump, his ties to Russia. The mistress.
Right, and it's coming out.
Yeah.
It's coming out. So, somebody, needs to call them up and tell them to hold off until the last week of October, maybe. But then we got a collusion problem. No, but in all seriousness, it's going to be closer than people think. And I think you're asking the right questions. It's going to come down to whatever's going on in the last 10 days before the November election, Reverend Harris.
Yep.
It really is.
Yep. And we've got to really deal with this. These midterms are critical, and we better be ready to turn out votes. Don't be complaining if you ain't voting. Don't be talking about what you don't like if you ain't voting. Don't be talking about who you don't like if you ain't voting. And that's my urban talk. Y'all can get with my urban talk.
Yes.
We have to vote. We have to register to vote. We have to prepare to vote. We got to study to vote. We got to do all that. Don't be talking about what you don't like. And don't be talking about Dr. King and them, because some of them helped you be able to have the right to walk into a booth freely and vote. So all y'all out there having conversations about what you don't like, who ain't getting paid, blacks ain't got no jobs, y'all ain't talking about this, you talking about that, how we getting treated in education, what's going on with HBCUs, while all y'all talking, don't complain if you ain't voting. That's all I got to say about that. All right. So in conjunction, Amos, from Russia to gun violence, all the way into this into these reports of everything going on. Obviously, it is a very busy week as we head into this week. Lots of conversation around very important and intriguing topics. What do you raise? Because obviously, we say CNN is reporting that the White House is in chaos shambles right now. Tucker Carlson.
Turnover.
Look. It's so bad that Tucker Carlson has turned on Trump.
This all comes from the top. At the end, it's like my battle against Campbell University, Norman Adrie Wiggins School of Law. Poor leadership from the top. These things should not happen, and they should not be in public, but people will pay the price for that vice. And you've got to humble yourself. We know this from the church. You must humble yourself and accept good, wise counsel. And that's what's not happening.
No, and he's not accepting wise counsel on these trade wars. Why is that so dangerous? Because
I've never seen tariff by Twitter. I mean, that's just the most vulgar thing I think I've seen in international economic policy. Putting a tariff out over Twitter. Basically, I mean, what are we doing?
Right. So
I mean, I think personally that Donald Trump is above this. Frankly, we know he has some challenges.
I don't know,
but I think
I'm sorry. To all my guests, I don't agree with Amos on that, but I understand.
And the reason I say that I think he's above it is that he ran a pretty tight business, even though they were heavily in debt at times. And this has got to be fixed. But Reverend Harris, the key is there is no substitute for expertise, experience, and know-how. And there are some echelons where one cannot operate without years and years of experience. I'll take Reverend Sharpton as an excellent example. Reverend Sharpton can preach. People don't know that who haven't gone to actually hear him deliver sermons. Reverend Sharpton has been preaching up a storm since he was a little boy. He was ordained in pre-adolescence. That's experience. Experience. And what you do not have is evaluation. That's why Jared Kushner is in charge of Mideast peace. Jared Kushner doesn't even know that you're not supposed to take tips from foreigners during a campaign. and get money from people who you met with at the White House for political reasons, and then take money for 666 Fifth Avenue.
Listen, man,
he doesn't know anything.
Don't even get me started on that.
Anything. He does not know anything.
Don't even get me started on that.
He doesn't know anything, and that's the problem. You have got to have people with experience, and it takes time. One quick thing.
Hey, real quick. We're taking a special call in from one of our young people, and I wanted to give them this opportunity. Let's listen in.
Call from
Joe. All right. So we're tapping in. Amos Jones, our political analyst from Washington, D.C. is on the line, but we're stopping here. We do take calls from 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. every Friday, but we're stopping here because one of our young people in our community, I wanted to give them the opportunity to share this important message. We've got to realize, as I said earlier, if we ain't advocating for young people, we ain't advocating for nothing. You can't talk about gun violence and not give the ones who are actually at risk the opportunity to speak up. This is why tomorrow in San Diego, if you're anywhere near, meet me at the House of Justice. All y'all talk about, I can't get a hold of Reverend Harris. Come on to the House of Justice. I'm there every Saturday at 10 a.m. keynoting. You can come and meet me. We are giving the kids a platform tomorrow at our regular Saturday Action Rally to share their thoughts about this gun violence issue and why they need to be the force to shake the tree. You can't talk about any policies or politics or disagreements. If you ain't talking about young people, you ain't talking about nothing, because they are the ones who have to go to school. They are the ones who have to deal with this. They are the ones at arm's risk, and they must have a voice. And that is why I am glad to have Sierra Cloud, one of our young people, and Joanne Fields, who's a major activist here in San Diego, who has let out and spoke up for young people and given them a platform. She gave me my first platform in the media, and now we're glad to be joined by Sierra Cloud, a young revolutionary who's going to change the world. Sierra, good morning.
Mm-hmm. Good morning. My name is Sierra Cloud. I am a student advocate representing Kids for Peace. I am excited to have the opportunity to share my thoughts, as I've been advocating Kids for Peace for over 10 years now.
All right, go ahead.
What do I think of gun violence? To me, I personally don't like gun violence because it takes the life of innocent people. For example, if someone was aiming for another person and misses and hits another adult or even child, he just took the life of an innocent person or an innocent child. In Las Vegas, a lone gunman armed with a small, powerful weapon opened fire from his 32nd floor hotel window onto a crowd of more than 20,000 concert goers below. Before apparently killing himself, he killed, by last count, 58 people and wounded more than 500, making it the worst mass shooting in modern U.S. history. This brings me to tears to know that 58 innocent people were killed due to his stress and sadness that could have helped and prevented. But because he didn't know how to control it, he lost it. Another example of gun violence is the Sandy Hook shooting. 20 students killed, 6 adults killed, and 2 adults wounded, all because the teen had depression problems. People are now wanting to walk out. But what about when the Las Vegas? What about Sandy Hook massacre? Why didn't we do anything then? What makes it different now? We need to stop this now.
Sierra, let me ask you a question before you go, and I hope you can join us at the National Action Network Saturday Action Rally tomorrow, because some of the USC students are coming to announce a major walkout that's going to be happening at UCSD in the next 2 weeks. But let me ask you this. What do you think needs to be done about this issue? What are your thoughts about solutions?
I think people need to come together and set an example of what we need to do so the word can get out. People can actually tune in and join and open up their eyes to what the world needs to hear and what the world needs to do.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Sierra and Joanne, of course, for all of your work in our communities. We must highlight the young people and give them the opportunity. Like I said, we cannot talk about solutions without the young people at the table and them leading the conversation. At the end of the day, they're the ones being shot at. They're the ones who have to deal with this. We're the ones who are concerned about them when they go to school. There have been, we had the Las Vegas shooting. We had the church massacre in North Charleston, but we cannot forget the reality that the schools have been the most vibrant across these gun violence shootings. You see it more in schools than you see it in anywhere else. There has got to be a conversation about young people, and this is why I'm targeting this. And for all y'all that said, why are they just now coming out? There are some who have been at work on this issue for a while. For about 5 years now, I've been leading a yearly campaign during June, which is Gun Violence Awareness Month. We let out, for almost 3 years now, a tour every year called the Come With a Cause Tour, where I went with Cheryl Morrow, one of the leaders here in our city and county and region, across the map to barbershops. And we held community talks about how to deal with gun violence, where do we take on all this. So if you ain't doing nothing prior to, don't come up talking about. Young people have been saying this is a problem for a while, and their voice must be heard. So if you're in San Diego or anywhere near, join us at the House of Justice headquarters tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We are live on the radio, live streaming across the net on our website across the country. And we are dealing with the issues. Media is expected to be there. I will be addressing this issue, and young people, I want you there with me on the platform saying this is what the problem is. This is what we think the solution needs to be. 10 a.m., 1728 South 39th Street, San Diego, California, 92113. Join me at the House of Justice headquarters. Rally for gun violence and for peace. We want to take on gun violence at its core, and we must need all voices, but definitely the young people leading us. And when I say young, I'm 26, but there are young people that are 16. I'm talking about them. I'm talking about 6-year-olds. I'm talking about 8-year-olds saying this is what's got to be done. We're the ones being targeted. We lead this fight. We at 26 need to support the 16-year-olds and the 15-year-olds and the 13-year-olds. This ain't about one section of young people versus the other, but I am saying that they're the ones who go to grade school and in college that are being targeted the most. Let's take it on. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Sierra. And, go ahead.
Thank you, and especially, again, that it is an ongoing issue. We hope it will stop once and for all. So for you to keep fighting the fight, giving this opportunity for our young people, it's really not about us. It is about our young people. So for you to give us a voice, not only locally, but nationally and essentially internationally, since we're on the internet. So thank you for that, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.
All right, thank you, Joanne and Sierra. And we are definitely continuing and closing, Amos. What are your thoughts about this piece, what you heard from our young people? These are the voices, and I've got to get more of our younger people on this show because their voices are the ones at the end of the day. They're the ones who are coming behind us, and we have to make sure that they have a platform.
Yes, we have got to be responsible for leaving the world better than we found it.
That's right.
And that means that we have to provide guidance to our young people. We have to equip them for leadership. We have to encourage and embolden them to speak up. And we have to take into account what they're seeing and witnessing. We also have to lead by example.
That's right.
In a world that's in great need of moral example and witness. And so I'm so glad that these young ladies came on here, that they're thinking through and speaking through these issues. That's going to meld mightily with your millennial vision and my late boomer vision and the more senior vision, and perhaps we'll solve these problems once and for all. I'm disappointed that we have this as a new problem. I found myself thinking, gosh, in the 1950s, we didn't have school shootings. And that doesn't mean that we need to rearrange society to go back to the 1950s like Mitt Romney. But that does mean that something was going right in those days that perhaps we need to reclaim. I find myself driving by the White House, walking by the White House. 16 Pennsylvania Avenue is closed for a couple of blocks in front of the White House. I remember President Clinton's first term. Some idiots started shooting at the White House, and they closed Pennsylvania Avenue permanently. So now you have to walk. At the rate we're going, Reverend Harris, in 15 to 35 years, the 5-block radius around the White House is going to be in a closed-off security zone. Do we ever think about imagining going back to when we can have cars driving by the White House and we don't have to worry? We can board an airplane without having to go through 15 layers of security at an airport. What's wrong with humanity where with all the advancements we've made in sociology and psychology and community that we're shooting everything up?
Right.
This is a moral, theological, religious problem. This is a spiritual crisis.
That's right. Well, we definitely have to stay on the ball and on the case. And, I appreciate your leadership in providing this concrete, every week providing concrete information to the community and across the country. Amos, closing words. What do you think the next week looks like, from gun violence to Russia?
Let's keep an eye on the indictment watch. More Russians are likely to be indicted. We now know that Mueller, from sources reporting that the special counsel is trying to figure out when Donald Trump had knowledge of particular Russian involvement and whether he used it to give some of those speeches during the campaign, and whether there was some coordination and whether that rises to the level of something where charges are solved. So we'll keep watching as the leak, drip, 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 and development happens. Again, I'm not saying there's going to be any removal, but the day I came on this show after James Comey was fired, I said it, we're heading toward impeachment on roller skates, I think. That doesn't mean the president is guilty or the president's going to be convicted. Bill Clinton was impeached and acquitted. That could happen too. That's why this midterm election for Democrats is so important. Right. If the Democrats take over, that makes removal more of the likelihood. And that's, of course, what some Democrats have wanted from the beginning. So we'll keep an eye on all of these developments with the special counsel's investigation and on North Korea and their weapons program.
Right. Well, I really appreciate you, sir, of course, for your weekly wisdom. And, one day I'll be as big as you, and I'll be the big guy in town where I get to where I get to travel on planes everywhere, constantly. You're always going somewhere. But we appreciate your context every week on this show, and of course, Bill Brown, our producer, is tirelessly working and to make this show happen. And we'll be holding a fundraiser in April. I want you to come out and support KTAV. We're going to be taking action, making sure that we stabilize this station in its work and its efforts in service to our community. So if y'all looking for an avenue to support, we have a fundraiser coming up in April. I don't want no excuses. It's going to be a fundraiser. Nan is sponsoring it. I want you to come out. We will highlight why radio is important and all the above. So we're going to get Simone Edwards. We're going to host a KTAV fundraiser. Let's put this station to work for the year. Let's supply some real funds to this station for its efforts, and let's support the movement. The movement. What is the movement? The movement is that we should have a platform and a voice in all of our communities. The movement is speaking up and speaking out. The movement is being the ones to lead the charge. Amos Jones, thank you. Thank you who watched live online via video. and you have a good weekend. Make sure to meet me on Saturday. If you're near San Diego, at the House of Justice headquarters, 10 a.m., 1728 South 39th Street. I'm there speaking live about gun violence tomorrow. You don't want to miss it. Thank you for watching. Also,